There is an undeniable mechanical soul inherent to a classic wheel gun. It is an experience you simply cannot replicate with today's polymer striker-fired duty pistols. When you swing that cylinder shut and feel the heavy steel lock up against the frame, it literally feels and sounds like you just slammed the door on a bank vault. But do not let that old-school aesthetic lull you into a false sense of security. We are discussing a caliber that brings catastrophic terminal ballistics to the fight. Today, we are doing a deep dive into why the .357 Magnum is vastly more lethal, and to be perfectly honest, a lot more legally and tactically dangerous than the tactical keyboard warriors want to admit. This cartridge is not just an impressive line of data on a gel test chart. This is a proven man-stopper that has abruptly ended gunfights. It routinely punches right through barrier-blind environments. And unfortunately, it has also been the centerpiece of some highly tragic after-action reports. Take a hard look at the incident from November 26, 2025. Out in Washington state, a violent threat ambushed 2 National Guard personnel. The suspect deployed a Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum revolver. He was running high-velocity, premium defensive hollow points. Those projectiles chewed straight through the defensive cover like it was made of wet cardboard. The resulting hydrostatic shock and soft tissue disruption was absolutely devastating. That specific incident perfectly illustrates the double-edged sword of packing a hand cannon in civilian environments. You are managing tremendous recoil energy at the muzzle. You are absorbing a concussive shockwave that you can literally feel in your ribcage. And most importantly, you are risking catastrophic overpenetration. If you fail to account for what lies beyond your target, this caliber will ruin your life in a courtroom. Stick around, because I am going to cut through the gun store mythology. I am going to hand you the raw tactical data on how to properly run this weapon system. We need to ensure you do not become a liability to yourself or your loved ones. If you believe in relying on gear that actually runs when your adrenaline spikes and your fine motor skills degrade, go ahead and hit that like button to support the channel. Forged in the fire of necessity, let us rewind the clock and examine the DNA of this absolute beast. To truly grasp why the .357 Magnum was engineered in the first place, you have to look at the criminal threat profile of the early 20th century. During the height of Prohibition, organized crime syndicates were operating with military efficiency. The cartels of that era were rolling in heavy-gauge, solid steel vehicles. What did the local beat cops have on their belts? They were issued standard .38 Special Service revolvers. I can tell you right now, firing a standard pressure .38 Special at a solid 1930 steel car door is totally useless. You might as well be throwing gravel at a modern armored personnel carrier. The lead was literally pancaking and deflecting off the heavy sheet metal. Law enforcement desperately needed a ballistic sledgehammer. So the engineers hit the drawing board and started pushing the chamber pressure to the absolute red line. By 1935, the .357 Magnum was officially born. They took the standard .38 Special brass, stretched it out by about 1/8 of an inch. Then they packed that elongated casing with a heavy charge of slow-burning propellant. Virtually overnight, patrol officers were holstering a sidearm capable of cracking an engine block. It could cleanly punch through those heavy automotive barriers that used to offer absolute ballistic protection. It completely disrupted the tactical landscape of that era. It essentially handed law enforcement the terminal performance of a carbine in a duty holster. That legacy is exactly why veteran gunfighters still revere this cartridge today. This ammunition was not engineered to punch paper at the local indoor range. It was purpose-built to stop fleeing vehicles dead in their tracks. Why the Magnum still reigns supreme so? Why are modern tactical shooters still strapping on a cartridge that is pushing a century old? Let us analyze the raw ballistics, because physics and math do not care about your feelings. Velocity and energy transfer. When you run premium defensive ammunition, those hollow points are screaming out of the muzzle. You are easily eclipsing 1,200 feet per second in a standard duty-length barrel. If you step down to a lighter projectile weight, you enter supersonic territory. That flat trajectory makes acquiring and engaging targets at a distance incredibly easy. When that premium hollow point strikes soft tissue, it dumps kinetic energy like a freight train off the rails. The permanent wound channel it carves out immediately overloads the central nervous system. Whether you are ethically harvesting a white-tailed deer or neutralizing an active deadly threat, the versatility factor, you can customize your cylinder for exactly what you are doing. Load up lightweight, high-velocity rounds for urban environments, or stuff the cylinder with heavy, hard-cast lead projectiles for deep, bone-crushing penetration in bear country. It is undeniably the Swiss Army knife of the handgun community. Mechanical accuracy. Almost every single .357 Magnum platform relies on a fixed barrel architecture, unlike the tilting barrel-locking block system you find in your modern semi-autos. A revolver barrel is permanently threaded into the frame. That zero-tolerance lockup guarantees pure mechanical consistency shot after shot. It makes an average shooter look like a seasoned marksman because the hardware does exactly what it is supposed to do. Barrier-blind performance. This cartridge simply does not care about intermediate barriers. If a violent threat tries to use auto glass or heavy residential drywall for concealment, the .357 Magnum just keeps aggressively chewing forward. It reaches the vital organs in scenarios where lesser micro-compact calibers fragment or deflect. Recoil management. Let us put it in perspective against the legendary .44 Magnum. Touching off a .44 Magnum is a ton of fun at an outdoor range. But that violent recoil impulse absolutely wrecks your split times in a defensive scenario. The 357 Magnum definitely has a sharp, authoritative snap, but it is completely manageable with proper grip mechanics. You can track your front sight and deliver rapid follow-up shots without blowing your wrists out. The range hack here is a golden nugget of advice for the newer shooters out there. If you purchase a cylinder chambered in 357 Magnum, it will flawlessly digest standard .38 special ammunition all day long. The internal case dimensions are identical where it counts. It is literally like getting two completely different weapon systems for the price of one. You can burn through cheap, soft-shooting .38 special to build your muscle memory. Then, swap over to full-house Magnum duty loads when you carry it concealed. Your fundamentals stay sharp, and your training budget stays intact. The real-world application, let me be perfectly clear, this is not a safe queen meant to be polished on Sundays. This is an absolute workhorse of a weapon. In the realm of civilian self-defense, this level of stopping power remains the gold standard. A solid A-zone hit generally neutralizes the hostile encounter immediately. For the outdoorsman listening, it is an absolute hammer on medium-sized game. I know countless hunters who take feral hogs and deer consistently using a lever-action 357. It drops them ethically, cleanly, and decisively. The liability of power now, we need to have a very blunt conversation about the negative aspects. Sir Isaac Newton is always in charge of the gunfight. That massive energy transfer comes with a steep tactical tax. Over-penetration, that legendary capability to defeat auto glass and car doors. Inside the close confines of your home, that is a massive legal and moral liability. A full-house Magnum duty load will zip clean through an attacker. It will blast through your interior sheetrock, defeat the insulation, and potentially strike an innocent neighbor. You have to actively scan your backstop and know exactly what is sitting behind your threat. This is the real world, and every projectile has a lawyer attached to it. The Miami lesson let us analyze the grim reality of the infamous FBI Dade County shootout on April 11, 1986. A heavily armed suspect named Michael Platt was carrying a Mini 14 carbine and a 357 Magnum revolver. Even after absorbing what should have been unsurvivable lethal hits, Platt continued to ruthlessly employ that revolver. He ultimately killed 2 federal agents and severely wounded 5 others. The terminal ballistics exchanged that day were so chaotic and violent, it forced the entire FBI to completely overhaul their ammunition testing protocols. It is a stark reminder that while caliber is important, shot placement and the warrior mindset dictate who goes home. Flash and concussion if you touch this off in a low-light home invasion scenario. The unburnt powder igniting outside the muzzle is literally a flashbang going off at arm's length. It will completely nuke your natural night vision in a fraction of a second. And the auditory exclusion? It sounds like a jet engine starting up inside a closet. If you discharge this weapon indoors without hearing protection, you are buying yourself permanent auditory damage. That high-pitched ringing is called tinnitus, and it will be with you for the rest of your life. Mastering the recoil. So, how do you harness this kind of raw power without developing a flinch? Situational awareness. You must rigidly apply the safety rules. Always positively identify your target and clearly establish your backstop. If you are staging this for home defense, look heavily into specialized frangible ammunition. Those projectiles are engineered to dump all their energy and shatter upon striking hard barriers. It drastically cuts down the risk of friendly fire through interior walls. Training doctrine. Do not walk into a gun shop, buy a snub-nose Magnum, and think you are ready for a gunfight. Seek out vetted, professional training. You have to lock in a high, aggressive grip to counter that muzzle flip. Pro tip for your next range day. Start cold with 50 rounds of standard .38 special. Ensure your trigger press is smooth and your sight picture is clean. Then, finish the session by running a cylinder or 2 of your carry Magnums. It builds up your tolerance to the concussion without wrecking your mechanics. Protect your ears and vest in a premium set of electronic hearing protection. They will amplify the range commands so you maintain situational awareness. But the microchips instantly clip the decibel spike when the firing pin drops. Whenever you can, run these big bore guns at an outdoor facility. Giving that concussive wave room to expand will make you a much better shooter. You only get one set of ears, so guard them with your life. The 357 Magnum earned its legendary status through decades of hard use in the worst conditions imaginable. It absolutely demands your respect. If you put in the dry fire reps and master the recoil impulse, you are looking at the most capable, adaptable defensive tool you could ever ask for. Whether you are hiking in grizzly country or holding down the fort at home. But the second you get lazy with your fundamentals, this caliber will absolutely punish your mistakes. I really appreciate you guys spending time on the range with me for this deep dive. I hope this breakdown gave you a clearer tactical picture of what this heavy-hitting cartridge is actually capable of. If you picked up some solid intel today, do me a favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next review, and sound off in the comments down below. Let me know, what is your absolute go-to 357 wheel gun? Are you a die-hard Smith & Wesson traditionalist, or do you bet your life on a rugged Ruger platform? Stay safe, always check your 6 and keep your powder dry.